Hello and welcome to DDOcast episode 344, recorded on Saturday, June 26th. I'm your host, Patrick, flying solo this week. This week's screenshot, the Blacklist Brigade Adventure as Blade Forge, the 181st screenshot of the week. Thank you, Magi, for sending that in. It's a nice group shot there, particularly like the glowing eyes. At least what looks like glowing eyes. It might just be a halo effect of what's behind, but it's a nice shot of various Blade Forge and various cosmetics that accompany them. We like to talk about Dungeons & Dragons online nearly every weekend. You can catch us through Google Plus Hangouts, YouTube, or from our website at DDOcast.com. DDOcast is hosted by CyberEars, the awesome podcast hosting network. Shows are usually available within a few days of recording. The next show will probably be sometime next weekend. It will probably be another recorded show. Haven't exactly figured out what's going on there. But you can stay up to date by following us on social media pages or our website, DDOcast.com, particularly with our calendar. You can kind of see what's coming up, which also has the calendar, if you don't know about it. You can go to our website, and there's a link in there, I think along the top bar, and you can check out the calendar. You can subscribe to it. I keep the various bonus days and events and store sales generally in there, as well as the DDOcast shows. So you can kind of keep track of all of that stuff if you like. On the podcast this week, 2 weeks of news. Not too much news, but about 2 weeks worth. And then we're also going to end with a walkthrough of Through a Mirror Darkly, which is the capstone quest in Wayloon Prison. If you are not familiar with it, it is not a very linear quest. It is perhaps even less linear than Inferno of the Damned. So should help a lot of folks navigate through there. And I've developed a fairly straightforward path, fairly easy to repeat. So hopefully that'll help a lot of folks, and that'll be at the end of the show. To start with game news, there were new quarterly wallpapers, which we'll link to in the show notes, and Update 22 launched. Woohoo! It's been pretty good so far. Let's see, Twitter support. They're changing how they do some of the Twitter support. They're happy to announce that as of today, which was probably a week and a half ago, customer service will be assisting everyone on Twitter through the official DDO feed at DDO Unlimited. No longer will you have to tweet or follow the support-only feed. They're going to be closely monitoring and responding to the feed for support issues between the hours of 9 and 7 Eastern Time, Monday to Friday, and 9 to 6 on Saturday and Sunday. Please remember, if you have any support issues, particularly that deal with any sensitive information like your billing or account, the best way to reach them is by opening a ticket at support.turbine.com, and one of the agents will get back to you as soon as possible. There are also that Pay by Cash is going away. In the coming weeks, Pay by Cash will be retired from DDO. Game Time will no longer be purchasable from their site starting on July 31st, so next week. Codes for Game Time acquired through the site will no longer be redeemable past August 31st. So if you have bought them, you should go use them now. If you are interested in purchasing additional Game Time, Turbine offers it directly. Basically, cutting out the middleman, which makes kind of sense. Let's see. Regarding space, so Twitter posted regarding some space that we'll talk about in a minute. Without going into a bunch of technical garble, they've been exploring how much more space they can add to the bank and shared banks. It's one of the reasons they introduced the bag deposit box, as they identified that items that go in bags behave differently than regular treasure. Because of that, they were able to increase the amount of space for the bag items into a much bigger chunk than a regular shared bank, i.e. 250 slots instead of 10 to 20. They're looking into whether they can expand that space to accept even more types of stacking items besides just the things that fit in bags directly. So effectively, you'd be able to have your shared bank for your, quote, real loot, weapons and armors and such, and the deposit box as a knickknack for storage space of ingredients, festival stuff, ammo, potions, scrolls, and other such consumables. Basically stacky stuff, the stuff that stacks, which would help people free up space in their main shared bank. I would approve of that. Once the engineering overlords have given it a thumbs up, they can add more space in varying places. And once it's available, they'll let us know that. And it's a very useful thing, that bag. They are also looking into getting combined stacks of the same things in better, so you can keep larger stack sizes. I know at least for token fragments, you can only stack up to 1,000, whereas in a bag they stack up to 2,500. So that would be nice. Bugs. They are investigating an issue where airships purchased prior to the release of Update 22 may not be seeing their first Guild airship renamed to be free. Additionally, there's an issue with some folks who have an incorrect ship names like string table error being able to get a free airship rename. Hope to get that fixed for Update 23. There is also a bug with the bank. Basically, what happens is certain things that basically stackables won't go into the bank. What you can do is split the stack. So basically, if you hold control on a stack and then move it to another spot, it'll give you a little pop-up window, and you can say, I want to move X number of that stack into that spot. If you just move one and then put the other stack, the original stack, onto that one and recombine them, they generally will go back into the bank. It's not what they want to have happen. It's a workaround, but they are looking into that issue as well. Bonus days for this week is VIPs only. VIPs will get an extra 5% XP to their bonus. Store news, lots of store news actually this week. This is kind of where most of the stuff is. First on the list, another inventory upgrade is available. You can upgrade your character's inventory by an additional 20 slots of storage, which is pretty slick. Note that only affects the purchasing character's inventory. True reincarnated characters will not lose access to this feature. Cross your fingers, it has happened in the past, although they have always reimbursed it, to my knowledge. These inventory upgrades stack with any gameplay unlocked backpack space, i.e. the Coin Lord favors. There's a new outfit, the Swashbuckler outfit. Was a lot of people were pretty happy about that, and apparently it can also be worn by Warforged, which is kind of interesting. And they also returned the ninja outfit to kind of go along with that. Those will probably be limited time only, so they may not stay around very long. They also released Parrot Creature Companions, and I have not run into any on live, and I'm hoping they are not as verbose as they were on Lemania when Jerry was previewing them. Sales for the week. These sales all run through July 30th or 31st. And some of these are the kind of the big summer sales that have been going on. This week they have 25% off of Guild Renown Elixirs, +1 to 5 stat tomes, veteran status, and 32-point builds. Additionally, you can get 50% off of Shared Bank, ingredient bags, and gem bags, 35% off of Tomes of Learning, as well as 75% off of the Druid class and Hireling folders. Yeehaw. If you don't have the Druid class, that is a good time to pick it up right there. The freebie for the week is a 10-stack of Gold Seal Elixir of Moderate Healing. The code for that is HEAL23, 1 per account. And additionally, they had a promotion where Haunted Halls, because if you retweeted a tweet, and I think it was an offer pop thing, you can get, we did unlock it, you had to get like 200 retweets, which did not take too long. And there's now a code to get Haunted Halls 25% off. That code is D20T4H. And that will be valid for about a week, depending on when you're listening to this. I believe it was unlocked today on the 26th, and they said it would be available for a week after it was unlocked, which means it would be available until about August 2nd. But if you don't have the Haunted Halls and you have any interest in getting it, 20% off is a pretty good deal. You might want to pick it up there. Chronicle news, the 122nd Chronicle. See, Jaggy was making new plushies. Pretty good job, actually. You can go check those out. The Long Shot is reporting from Stormreach in a new blog. Sith DDO is talking about making more plat in a new video that you can watch. Let's see. The Guild Hall this is all from last week's Chronicle. The Raven's Guard are a small group of players on Talanis dedicated to providing a space for fellow players to be themselves. Guild has a website with more information that you can check out. The Chronicle comment for the week is, what do you think the name of the cage owlbear in the harbor is? I gotta go with Yogi. If we're gonna talk about bears, I'm going with Yogi. Let's see, Fansite News, DDOcast talked about loot in 343. That was our last episode, and the DDO Gamer headed out to Sorrow Dusk Isle and took a look around there as well. Let's see, and MMOplay.com looked at some of DDO's best wilderness areas, as well as Wizards of the Coast released their new D&D starter set, and there's a place on the forums you can talk about that if you're interested in looking at that. The 103rd Chronicle, that was this week's Chronicle. Sabara and Laren and others are live streaming a new static group on Wayfinder. They're calling it Minion Mondays. Best luck to you guys there. Teva-sama has created a new map for the Restless Isles, which is, if you've never been out there, that is probably one of the most difficult adventure areas to navigate, simply because it has a lot of not portals, but different doorways that you go through, and it's kind of really chunky. The long shot reports from Stormreach. Again, you can check that out. The guild hall for this week was the Clan MacLeod, are a Solona-based guild looking to expand their rank with the members of any age or skill level. The guild has a diverse roster open to players of any style. And the comment for the week, when he's not making horrible creation, what's the Mentau the Flesh Maker's hobby? I would say models. Probably a big modeler. Likes making models of all sorts of things. Airplanes, airships, all sorts of things. Maybe he likes Legos specifically, making Lego models. Let's see. Fansite News, the Order of Syncletica looked at character goals in a new blog post. You can check that out. DDO Gamer storms the Ballista and mostly lives a tale of tale. He ran Storm the Beaches, and much as I did, discovered that the Ballistas not only shoot back, but they do so very effectively. They pack quite a punch these days. Used to be that they didn't shoot back, and you could snipe them off from the top, and it was pretty easy to do. Not anymore. They shoot, and they shoot to kill. Let's see. DDO player Cestus joined Cordovan to the Wednesday weekly lunchtime this week, which I'll talk about in a minute. Let's see. And I think that was most of what's going on. Games Radar names DDO one of the best MMORPGs, which is pretty slick there. All right, let's see. And there will also not be a Chronicle this next Friday. There will be a hiatus. Let's see, the DDO Twitch feed the last couple of weeks, they did Snitch with developer commentary with Knockback, who created the quest, which was pretty fun to listen to. They actually ran it 3 times to fill out the hour and to get as much commentary as possible. And then last week, they ran Stormhorn's Epic Elite. That was when he was joined by Cetus, one of those two. The Spring Fling, the last 2 weeks ran Tangleroot in 2 parts. So you can check that out on the official DDO feed. You can also, I don't have links for them, but you can watch Samus's feed. I think there's like 3 or 4, maybe 2 or 3 or 4 other people who are actually streaming that as well. So if you want to see this Spring Fling, you have many options on that. There was a community update video on the 18th of July. And I'll also just mention that if you are doing Twitch feeds, if you want to be featured on the show, just send me an email, link to your feed, and we'll let folks know about that. If I get enough, I might look into making a Twitch feed link on our website, just so people can navigate to those pretty easily. Blogs for the week. I want to let folks know that Voodoo, who's been on the show a few times, has his own YouTube channel. It's fairly new. He's featuring solo Epic Elite quests on his Druid build, which we mentioned when we were talking about Druids, and several instructional videos such as how to solo Hound of Zoroat, how to find your way through the Prey of Hunter, and how to solo Genesis Point with an explanation of all the levers and valves. He's been adding new videos fairly consistently every week. DDO Gamer graphed content releases. It was kind of an interesting little post that I wanted to highlight. Basically what he did is he took the amount of content based on bar graphs that showed the amount of content released over time, and then kind of compared it and looked at some of that stuff. It was kind of interesting. He basically came to the overall conclusion that we are getting slightly less content, but not necessarily a lot of less content over the last couple of years. And Chaz Comic Relief had a post on how to succeed on the auction house without even trying. He had some great thoughts on how to be successful selling stuff, so we'll link to that in the show notes as well. And also wanted to let folks know, it looks like DDO Cocktail Hour got broke. I'm not sure exactly how, although I have a feeling that the next Cocktail Hour may explain that in their Lessa is a Noob segment, but we'll find out together on that one. Forums this week, there are a couple of things I wanted to highlight on the forums. Probably my favorite ever suggestion, Double Edge suggested as a new cosmetic hat, a tinfoil hat. which seem to be very well received. So if you want that to get some traction, go in the suggestions forum and maybe just put in a signed key there and let the devs know that we want a tinfoil hat. That could be pretty fun. There's also a player whose name I forgot to write down. Basically tracked over 140 completions of the Thunder Home raids, what they were getting for ingredients, and made some conclusions based on that. Pretty interesting, and there's some discussion going on based on that. DDOcast news. So there's a couple things coming up. One, I just want to get people aware of. The first is that I will be stopping by on different servers, asking some questions in exchange for prizes. What I'll be doing is basically throwing up an LFM and inviting people to come and answer 3 or 4 questions, maybe a few more, depending on how many people I'm getting at a time. And I'll give you a prize. Read that as I will give you a pair of cards, or possibly more, depending on how things are going, and how many cards I have left. I also have some other stuff that I can give away too. But basically what I'm doing is preparing for something that is forthcoming that we'll find out about later. Also wanted to give kind of a heads up. Episode 350, which will be my 50th episode, I'm going to do DDOcast quote live. It's not going to be truly live in the sense that I'm not going to be broadcasting it live. Someone might pop in and Twitch it. I'm not sure, or I might even look into doing a Twitch feed. But basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop on a server, probably Kyber, but I'll give more details about that when I finalize some stuff down. And basically have an open LFM for people to join and pretty much talk about whatever they want to talk about, provided that it is clean and respectful. Those are pretty much going to be the only 2 rules. But you can ask questions, just chat about, pick my brain on whatever you might be interested in. We might have some of the other guests as well, but it should be a good fun time. I'll probably be on for about 2 hours doing that. So that'll be coming, and I believe that will fall on September 6th, probably around 4 p.m. Pacific, although that time is subject to change. So you can kind of just pencil that in as well. General gaming news, just to round out the news here, there is a Gen Con meetup, which we'll link to in the show notes. Gen Con's coming up August 14th to 17th, and PAX Prime will be Labor Day weekend, August 29th through September 1st. I don't know of anything that's official that's happening, but there will probably at least be some sort of gathering with DDO players. If nothing else, I will probably have to set something up. But there will be more details with that forthcoming when we get a little closer to that. Lightning post for the week. Purger asks, how do you produce a podcast? What goes into it? Mostly what goes into it is a lot of talking, which sometimes comes really easily and sometimes doesn't, as you may notice. It depends on how much you really want to get into it. I usually spend a little bit of time looking at the forums and collecting news. Generally speaking, I mostly just kind of follow the dev tracker and the RDDO blog kind of scroller. Those are kind of the 2 main things I pay attention to, and then I kind of browse through the forums. I don't follow the forums too much, but I'll usually kind of poke my head into the general discussion a couple of days, like the day or the day before of a show. So just kind of compile everything using Google Docs so that I can share it easily with other people on the show. There's a lot of kind of scheduling, getting folks kind of lined up to be guests, making sure that the time works for everyone, keeping the topics interesting. So I've done a couple of surveys to kind of figure out what people are interested in hearing about and whether or not they like things like the walkthroughs that I've been doing. We've done some builds, whether or not people like that. Make sure that those stuff is generally received. I'm always open to feedback through DDOcast@gmail.com, but that doesn't get a lot of feedback. So sometimes I try and kind of poll the audience, so to speak, to kind of get a better idea of what people want to hear about. And kind of give an idea of like people want a longer shows, shorter shows. Mostly people kind of were in the middle and all over the place, so I didn't really get great feedback there. But I'll probably try and vary the show's length a little more than I have been. But kind of 1 hour to 2 hours, just fair warning, is going to be where we're going to be landing for the most part. As far as actually recording it, I do it through a lot of different mediums. I use open broadcast software to do any kind of in-game footage. I've also actually recorded a few shows just in-game doing that. That's what I'm going to use for when I do the quote live show for 350. You can get the video, or I can just translate it into audio, which is generally what I do if I'm just doing kind of a show, unless I'm doing a walkthrough. Other than that, it's kind of there's a little bit of a trick on how you do your video and audio and get everything to kind of funnel into the same channels. I use Google Plus Hangouts, which does a couple of things really well and a couple of things not so really well. And then there's the editing phase, which I kind of half skip most of the time. Depending on how well I thought the live show goes, I'm doing this completely free. It's my free time. And I don't really feel like spending a lot of time behind a computer doing a lot of editing. So, you kind of get to some of my stammers and whatnot, because I don't really feel like trying to funnel and filter all of that stuff out. It'll be a lot of work to go through and really, really polish it up. Plus, when we do it as a video, it doesn't translate very well. If you're just doing an audio podcast, it's really easy to kind of splice a lot of the stuff up. If you're doing a video podcast, what happens is you get a pose like this, and then it just randomly cuts to where I'm doing something like this, and then up to here, and you get a lot of weird kind of transitions with the video. Whereas audio, you can be really loosey-goosey with how you splice stuff together. You kind of just look for the pauses between people's kind of sentences, and it's pretty easy to do that. But it's really time-consuming, so I generally don't do a lot of that. I do, push it out to a couple of different places, but I've got a lot better at that and can do that pretty fast. Mostly, it's waiting for loading times. And there's a little bit of video editing, particularly when I do walkthroughs of different things, or I'm splicing videos in. I've been doing I've had to do a few tricks to kind of make that happen. If you are doing that, what you can do is basically, if you have a video that you want to splice different videos in your, I use Windows Movie Maker because it was free and it was pretty easy to learn, but it doesn't do like window stuff. So what you can do, which is what I did, is basically I took my video footage, turned it into an audio file, put the audio file over the video, and then spliced the new videos into the old video and just let the audio kind of run over it. Took a little time, but it worked okay. So that's kind of a brief summary, as brief as I can make it, of what goes into a podcast. Mostly just time and a willingness to learn about how to do something like this, which is part of the reason why I did it in the first place, is because it was just something that sounded interesting to me. And then just planning, making sure you have something to talk about and people to talk with, although I don't have that this week. So with that, I'm going to wrap up this portion of the show. So thanks for listening to the show, and thanks to those folks who are currently contributing to DDOcast, especially thanks to Turbine and Wizards for making D&D and DDO, and thanks to Cyberish for hosting the podcast. You can hit us up at DDOcast.com for show notes, calendar, previous shows, swag, and other fun stuff. If you want to be a part of the show or you just want to say hi, you can email us at DDOcast@gmail.com. You can also find us on social media pages and follow us for the latest cast updates. If you're looking for us on social media, you can go to our website, DDOcast.com, and you can find a bunch of different links there as well. The closing tip for the week comes from Nadia. At epic levels, you can get rogue hirelings for plat instead of shards. A handy little tip there. And since we missed a week, we get a bonus screenshot. This is Kabuki rests after a successful night on Blood Tide Pirates in the 182nd shot of the week. Thanks, Override, for sending in that cool screenshot. It's a very nice screenshot indeed. So with that, stay tuned for the walkthrough of Through a Mirror Darkly, and may all your attack rolls be crits, all your chest level appropriate, have fun, and don't forget to watch out for ballista shots. Hello, DDOcast listeners. What we're going to do this afternoon is we're going to look at Through a Mirror Darkly. It's the capstone quest of the Prison of Wayloon series. And because I'm such a nice guy, we'll actually show you how to get there as well. So where I'm at right now is the zone-in point for the Prison of Wayloon. Now see this lizard folk guy right over here? He'll actually take you to the different places in the dungeon, or in the Explorer area, but he does charge you 3 astral shards, even if you've already been there. We'll show you how to get there without having done that beforehand. And just for a little ease, I'll throw an invis on myself. Wayloon is a prison city. It's a pretty good Explorer area. You want to watch out for some traps. There's a lot of kind of rooftops that you can jump up and down on. A lot of different, mostly humans, but there's a couple other things. You can see some poison traps going off behind me. And you can see some gargoyles flying about. There is a gate that gives you a little quicker access to the dungeon we're going to. However, we are not going to be going in that direction for the most part. We'll pretty much try and take a more or less straightforward path so that y'all can duplicate my efforts here. Basically what we're trying to do is get to the north side of town. There's a lot of different paths that you can take to get there. There's a lot of different, you can see that I'm kind of hanging out on top of the rooftops a lot right now, kind of working my way around. Pretty much anytime I get to a gate, you kind of jump up on the rooftops to kind of go around it. And you can see some traps and whatnot as I'm going through here. I'm just going to pause. This is kind of a key point. This is where you're going to have to go through. Everyone pretty much has to go through this point in the wall. But just for a little bonus here, if you run up to the right on the rooftops here, there are a couple of explorer points that you can get that are really easy and pretty much right on the way. A little extra XP for you there.
Fear not. We control the Shadowfell here.
Now there are 4 other quests throughout this Wilderness Explorer area that you have to do before you can get credit for this quest. They're not too difficult. There's groups that are up fairly often. As you can see, as we went through that big gate, pretty much immediately jumped to the rooftops and pulled a U-turn here. Because just inside the gates and kind of to the right there is where we want to go. And you'll find a big host of mobs, the quest entrance, a rest shrine, as well as the gate I was mentioning earlier, which I'll show you on the map. Whereas it's pretty much the west side of town, and I kind of ran by. You kind of see that the map connects. Until someone pulls that gate, you can't really get in without teleporting, other than through that north little access point. But as I just demonstrated, it's not too hard to get in there. And because I'm alone, and because I'm trying to do this fast to make this not too long, we'll do this on epic normal. Now, the first thing you're going to want to do when you get in here is open up your inventory and find the first open inventory slot. And you'll find this Mirror of Shadows in there. And you want to put that on a very convenient place in your hotbar. Not necessarily where you're not going to need to hit it during combat or anything for the most part. But you want to be able to make easy reference to it later. Basically what we're going to do here is, much like Inferno of the Damned, this quest has 2 sides. So there's kind of the light side, and then there's a shadow side. And what you have to do as you're moving through the quest is go back and forth between the sides, because various points will be blocked on one side or the other. But if you flip to the other side, it'll be home free and open. Now this Mirror of Shadows thing that we just pulled out of our bag is what we're going to use to do that from. And if you need kind of some clarification, the guy here, right at the quest, will kind of give you an explanation of what's going on. Of course, once he tells you that, he's going to run away. So what we're going to do here is switch to the mirror to the shadow side. Before I do that, I'm going to pop this rogue hireling, which I am going to use later, hopefully with some degree of success. Just kind of a brief overview beyond what we've already discussed. This is basically a mansion. It's be hard to see on the map until I'm done, but as we go through, you'll see that there's 2 floors to the mansion, but it's basically one giant circle with a courtyard in the middle. And we'll kind of see most of that throughout the way. And what you're going to kind of find is that you could go in a lot of different directions. We have to find 8 orbs, 4 on the light side and 4 on the shadow side. There's also an optional to find 4 books that are on kind of both sides as you go out through the dungeon. Now, as you flip sides, one kind of thing to keep in mind is it's best to flip sides in a hallway. Don't flip sides in a room, except for a few key points. You generally don't want to flip sides in a room, because what happens is there's pretty much always some mobs in that room, and they can interrupt you from using the mirror to get back to safety. You can't run through the door to run away, because you haven't opened it on that side yet. So pretty much always you want to flip inside or outside of a room, in the hallways. That kind of make things a little easier. There are a few points that there are some traps. There's also several chests in here, most of which will be mimics, which I will kind of point out where they are, but I won't necessarily go find all of them just for ease of access. What I'm going to kind of show here is not necessarily every nook and cranny, but kind of a very direct, easy path that you can follow to duplicate a fairly quick run. So to start, we'll gaze into the mirror and flip to the sides. You can always tell you're on the shadow side because it's a little purple, whereas the light side is not. And right here is the first of the books that we need to find. They give you that one pretty much for free. We're going to go to the right and go south. We start on the west side on the ground floor. And pretty much what the plan here is going to be to do the ground floor first and then go to the upper floor. And of course, there will be mobs on both sides of both light and dark. You will find that some are different than others, what's on what side and whatnot. But it's fairly predictable, and if you've been in Wayloon very much, you'll kind of have run into most of this stuff before. The assassins are the ones you got to watch out for, because they're the Sharder Kai that can whip the chains around. Now, through this barrier, you have to flip sides and go in this direction. On the ground floor in the southwest corner is one of those chest locations that I'm not going to kind of show and go through. It's also worth noting that there are a couple of places where there's secret doors where those chests can be, which can make it kind of hard to find all these chest locations, but they're around. All right, what we're going to do first here is open this door here and kill the guys inside of it. And there's our first shadow orb that we needed to find. And there's some breakables in here that you can do. And again, we're not quite ready to flip over to the light side, but we don't want to flip inside that room. What I'm going to do is come over to another door, because I want to kind of clear out a little bit, kind of minimize the amount of time that I need to switch sides. So we'll kind of open this door up and make sure there's nothing bad behind it. And we got one of those Shotokai assassins, so we'll get rid of him. Alright, now we're kind of gone as far as we can go on this side. So we're going to come back to where we were and flip over here. And the reason why I kind of do this first and kind of flip and kind of backtrack as much as I just did, because I kind of want what's behind this door, which, if you can look on the mini-map in the upper left corner, is a shrine. So it's kind of just handy to make sure that's free and open. And there's some crates in here that we can smash up as well. You can see the mobs on this side are slightly different. It's still relatively the same. there's a little bit of variation. You can see here, here's one of the stairs that goes up, and if you remember on the shadow side, there was a barrier there. But we're not quite ready to go that direction. We're going to finish the ground floor first. We're going to keep going, going in a counterclockwise direction, and there's one of the other orbs that we're looking for. This is one of the light orbs. It's yellow instead of black, and of course says light orb.
This door has been blocked off.
And here's another kind of dead end, so we'll flip to the back to the shadow side. And you notice here that I'm actually going to skip this southeast room on the ground floor on the shadow side. Don't actually need to go in there for any reason, unless you want to kill some more stuff. But otherwise, there's nothing of consequence in that room. And as we move along here, find that there's these shadow puppeteers, and what they do is kind of control NPC characters with varying degrees of success. You can see there that that war wizard wasn't really attacking me. Depending on the difficulty, I think it kind of depends on how they attack you. So we're on this side, and we're going to switch back. Didn't get very far on that round, which is sometimes the case. There's a side door in here that wasn't even a door on the other side at all. However, we've got one here with howlers, probably the most annoying monster in this area. Howlers can stun you and also reduce your will save just by themselves, which can be a bit of a pain. You can see here, here's the secret door. This is actually why I brought the hireling, just in case I needed to search out this door. This door is kind of important because if you can't find this door, you basically have to go a slightly different path. As you recall, on the shadow side, this door in the main corridor on the east side, on the first floor, is blocked on both sides. So you can't actually complete the circuit. But you can if you can find the secret door. Now, if you can't find the secret door, what you can do is just go back to the beginning, the same way you came. Keep in mind that we didn't clear the south room on the shadow side, the southeast room on the shadow side. And instead of going counterclockwise, you can just, from the start, just start going clockwise. And you'll end up coming back to the same point, and then you can just backtrack to going up to the second floor, which we'll do later. However, if you do get in here, you come into this room and go to the other side, and there's a little optional with an extra chest and a named guy and a couple of howlers. And this guy's not too tough. Really, the howlers are what's going to give you more of a problem than anything else. As you can see, a Wail of the Banshee from a measly sort was more than enough to take out that named guy there, apparently. Which is slightly strange since he shouldn't have died there. But, such as it is, he's worth a little bit of XP, and you get this nice little chest here. Now, of course, the howlers give you these really annoying quills, which make it a little tricky to open things, since they kind of keep taking you for a minor amount of damage. And so now, having gone that little detour, we are able to kind of continue going in our counterclockwise direction. And again, if you can't find that door, just go back to the start, take a detour, or you can walk there, and just go in the other direction, and you'll eventually get back to the same point, and you can turn back around. As you can see, there's a lot of switching back and forth. The big difference between this and Inferno in that regards is that you get to pick whenever you switch sides. So it's not as limiting in that regards. It's actually really, you can pretty much pick whenever you want. Now on the flip side, It means if you're not paying attention, people can disappear on you, and you'll lose the rest of your party and get lost. So you want to kind of try and stay together, move together, and make sure everyone's kind of knows where they're going. It doesn't get left too far behind. Because if they switch in the wrong spot, they might get lost. And then run into a lot of trouble and a bunch of mobs. Here's the second shadow orb, which we'll pick up. And if you see on the mini-map, you can actually see the shrine here. It's actually on the other side, so it'll tell you if there's a shrine on one side or the other, but not actually which side. And as we continue on, now this little side room here is another place that there can be a chest. There's actually a secret door on one side or the other, and that can have the chest. And again, a lot of these chests are actually mimics. They're not actually chests, so open them at your own risk. And unfortunately, the devs got a little crafty on us and fixed the bug where you could actually just examine a chest, and if it was a mimic, it would tell you that it was a mimic, not a chest. But they have fixed that. So open chests at your own risk in here. Usually one of them is actually a chest. I believe there's 3 or 4 that are not. And here is, you can hear the guys on the side here. This is the other shrine, which I was pointing out was on the other side from where we were. A lot of Sharded Kai in here, and the Howlers. Mostly, though, it's pretty much what you're going to find. A couple of shadows here and there. But nothing you haven't fought before if you've been running the Wayloon quests. Okay, things are getting a little kind of tricky here. We're going to kind of pop into this room right here. And the shadow side of this room has another one of those books. Now, you don't actually necessarily need to do the light side of this room, because unless you kind of had to go around from their side, but this room will actually connect on both sides, I believe, to the main room where we started from. So if you do need to go around that room where you can't find the door on the east side, you'll end up back here, and you just go to the north and move clockwise through the different rooms. Now in the northwest corner, we're going to need to switch sides because on the other side is not only the way through to get to the next orb, but there's also a book in here, as well as a number of shadows. And of course, doing this on normal, there's not as many mobs. If you do this on 100 difficulty or with more people, you'll get more mobs throughout the dungeon. And you can see here's another shadow puppeteer controlling one of the purple dragon knights. The other one, of course, is being very helpful and attacking him instead. And since we're still on the shadow side, we do need to flip. We need to get the light orb in this corner. And again, you notice how I left the room to switch, such that I wasn't locked in as much of a small space. Generally speaking, there's fewer mobs in the hallways than the rooms, so always slip in the halls if you can. Now that completes the first floor, and you'll notice that out of the 4 light orbs, 4 shadow orbs, and 4 Archwidow's orders, we have found 2 of each. So half of them are on the ground floor, and half of them are on the second floor. And here's a nice view of the map for the first floor. There's a little bit of blackout in the middle, but we haven't gotten there quite yet. And what you notice as we go up the stairs is that what's going to happen is the map's going to change to the second floor map, which it kind of still shows you that you've been there, to a certain extent because you've been there on the been around there in the first floor, but it does give you kind of a delineation between the two different floors. Now, once you come up the stairs on the shadow side, come up to the west end of the hall and flip there. You don't want to flip in the middle of the hall here because there's actually a spell word trap just kind of hanging out, waiting for you to pop through here. Sometimes, perhaps not always, but that's where you can find one of those. And what it does is it throws that's one of the ones that animates all of the breakables in the area. So we just came up the stairs, and we're going to go to the northwest corner, which again will have an orb for us. That will be 3 of the orbs that we need. And we will continue. Now we're going to go kind of in the opposite direction that we just went on the first floor. So we're going to go clockwise this time, pretty much all the way around. And if you don't really know your way around and aren't really comfortable, again, you just kind of pop your head into the various doors and make sure there's nothing inside. Look for, there's nothing actually in this room other than a rather comical scene of a wizard turning a bunch of his minions into rats. So be careful who your friends are if they're wizards. You want to watch out for that. Some of them are a little crazy. Finding nothing in the room, we'll come back out and re-switch sides. And we'll notice that in this side we have not only a book, but another shrine. There are a fair number of shrines in this quest, actually. This is also a quest that you can do on Heroic. I'm doing it on Epic. But it does have Heroic difficulties, which is part of the reason why there's so many shrines. Alright. Now in this room, on the east side here, on the light side, you'll notice we have the orb. That is the second or third orb, first one on this floor. So you want to grab that first. And you'll notice there's another way that we can keep going to the south here. And there's also kind of this interesting kind of alcove with some lights, some stained glass windows. Right here is where we're going to switch back over. And that same little room that we were just in, we're going to pop back in there on the shadow side. Because here is the last book that we're looking for. And another one of those pesky assassins. You can see how you get a couple of these guys. It's not too uncommon for a room to have 2 or 3 of those guys in it. And if you just kind of pop over, you might be caught a little unawares, and they can really do some damage. Now on the shadow side of where that alcove with the windows was, is the entrance into the courtyard, which is where the last shadow orb is. There's also a fun little surprise down on the bottom. A nice little beholder. Now, you might think that it'd be a fun and easy idea to pop up to the top here and perch up here. However, he's not too fond of that and will actually become inactive and make fun of the fact, as you can see here, that if we're going to hide up here, then he's not going to fight either. So you can't hide up here. However, he doesn't have an anti-magic eye, so he's not too difficult. Although he can have a pile of hit points, and he is a rather potent foe. Even so. but with a little bit of persistence, you can take care of him pretty easily. A lot of groups actually will occasionally just come in here and farm this guy's chest. And what they'll do is they'll pretty much just make a beeline for him, kill him, take his loot, pop out and reset the quest, which is certainly an option.
The shadow beholder bellows in agony as
He is
he
worth a fair
descends
bit of
back
XP
into
as
the
well,
darkness.
and gives you a nice chest. Now, we're just down to the one last light orb at this point, and instead of going back up to the second floor and continuing around that way, we're actually going to skip a sizable portion. And from the courtyard, go to the west spot where there's a little door here, and we're going to switch back to the light side, and we'll come out in the center. Now, you notice there's a little gate that kind of popped up when I opened that door. You can't just pop over here and go straight in. They don't let you do that. Alright, so now, having done that, we're going to go back down to the first floor and kind of go back to that first stairway we found. And again, the reason why we're doing this is it kind of skips the whole northeastern portion of the dungeon on the second floor. Kind of skip a few rooms that we don't really have to deal with. Now, if you want to get completion, the whole full completion and tour, you can go that direction, break some boxes, kill some guys. You're more than welcome to do that. But it's not entirely necessary to kind of go in that whole southeast quadrant. However, we do need to go to the southwest quadrant, which is where the last light orb is. However, before we do that, I'm going to take an opportunity to shrine here. Because this last orb is guarded by a fairly difficult boss, probably more so than the Beholder. And he will also actually serve as an introduction to the mechanic for the end boss as well. Hopefully, this little guide will make this dungeon far less intimidating in terms of the map. It is easy to get turned around and lost, and I want to try and avoid that as much as possible.
Darkness. She seems to have been expecting you.
Alright, so this is one occasion where we have to flip inside the room, because on the other side there's a wall. So what we're going to do is we're going to come in and just kind of make sure there's nothing hiding in here. Kind of collect up these shadows hanging out and get rid of them. We might need to come back to this side. And then we're going to come back over to the door as close as we can and switch sides close to the door. We don't want to be all the way in the room as much as possible. There's going to be a fairly sizable group of mobs here that we're going to want to kind of be ready for a little bit. Depending on what difficulty you're doing this on and how many folks are in your party. Now this guy right here, this is kind of one of the mini bosses. And you'll see that he just disappeared, and what he's actually doing is he jumps back and forth between the two sides. And you can follow him, but this guy is pretty easy to take care of, and I generally just stay on the original side. Now, if this guy proves to be too much of a difficulty for you, the orb is here, you can grab it, and you can switch back and run. You don't actually have to fight this guy, he's an optional to kill. And he's a pretty beefy and potent guy. He can do quite a bit of damage, particularly on harder difficulties. You can see that even when he switches sides, he comes back pretty quick. So there's not really too much of a need to chase him to the other side. Now the end boss, however, he is not so kind and does kind of require a lot of switching back and forth depending on how fast you beat him down. Alright, and having defeated him, we can loot his chest as well. And head towards the final fight.
To accept defeat by one such as you.
The one trick though is if you do want to grab the orb and run away, you kind of have to be smart about it, because you got to do it within that room, and if something hits you, it will interrupt you, and you won't port to the other side. You have to wait for your cooldown timer to go as well. Alright, we're just gonna run back to the start. If I remember which direction it is. So you can see how this quest can be really hard to navigate until you kind of figure it out. And again, it's a pretty simple loop. To again just kind of refresh what we did. We started here in the west, and on the first floor went south, and it went in a clockwise manner. And then once we got to the north side, and we went up to the second floor and kind of went back in the other direction through the middle, and back up and around to the southwest corner, kind of skipping that whole southeast section that we didn't really need to do. Okay, so what we need to do here, once we get back to the main room, we need to go to the light side, and here we'll find pedestals for the 4 shadow orbs. So they do kind of go in your inventory, so whoever picks them up has to remember to put them in the pedestal. So you may choose to have one person pick them all up. Then we switch back to the other side, and there's now this nice lovely bridge going to the other side here,
These light pedestals are
with
dormant,
light
but
pedestals
still
for the
radiate a
light
subtle
orbs.
magical aura. No doubt they are receptacles for some kind of orb.
And there's one last shrine before you
The barrier of light
do the last fight here.
allowing you to proceed.
And once you step into the kind of almost a chimney, gravity will pull you up to the top, where the end fight will begin. What's going to happen is this guy within the same room is going to keep switching sides on us. He'll basically become invulnerable on this side, and you have to go to the other side to fight him, with all the mobs kind of trying to kill you while you're doing that, of course.
I shall force him to watch as I destroy you.
And here he comes. Now, you can have some folks kind of work on the trash and have some folks work on the boss, or what you can also do is just work on the boss until he goes away, and when he switches, you can kind of kill the trash that you need to be able to switch without getting interrupted. So whatever the party wants to do, there's a couple different ways that you can do it, whichever way you guys like to do it. You will get a few guys around. You can see that he is now vulnerable on this side. Means we gotta switch back. And you're pretty much just gonna keep doing this until you beat him down. Pretty simple fight once you kind of get the hang of it. It is a little tricky though. To kind of manage the different switches that you're going to have to do. And keep the mobs down as well so you can switch back and forth. Now you notice every time we switch, your dots will kind of go away. You don't get to keep dots from both sides, unfortunately. So that kind of a caster can have a little bit harder of a problem here, although you can still use them as I am as well. But just kind of remember that what happens on one side doesn't necessarily apply to the other side.
Tiverus falls, breaking his hold over
And once he dies, you can come over and talk to the guy over here, Orifon. And once you do, the quest ends, and there you go. And it is worth a sizable amount of experience. I got about 100,000 there without an XP pot, just on normal. And without getting really any of the bonuses other than finding 5 secret doors. So it's once you kind of get it down, even kind of taking it a little bit slow. I did it in about 30 minutes and got 100k out of it. So it's a pretty decent quest in terms of XP. And it's the capstone, so if you do all the other quests with it, you can kind of turn in for a special end reward. Well, there you have it, folks. There is Through a Mirror Darkly. Hope you enjoyed that and find it useful. Thanks for listening to the show, and happy hunting.